For college football fans, the video game scene has been kind of bleak over the last few years. Ever since NCAA 14 was the last version of the college football video game to come out, we really haven't seen anything that's been sustainable or something that fans really enjoyed. With rumors and reports of NCAA 23 coming out, I thought it would be fun since Madden 23 just came out and showed their ratings. If we go back and look at what college football players' ratings would be this year. Now, there was a channel that did kind of their ratings, and that's SG1 Sports, and I'll have a link down to their channel in the description. But it was fun to see what they had to think about the college football players and what their ratings would be in NCAA 23. So today we're going to take a look at that, some of the top players, and kind of give my thoughts on if someone's too high, too low, all that kind of stuff. Starting with the top players in college football, I think the first one that everybody would agree on is Will Anderson being a 99. I think that he is probably the only one, in my opinion, that would be a 99. I don't know if you could convince me otherwise. If you think someone else would be a 99 overall, it'd be, like I said, kind of tough to convince me that someone else would join him. He does have Bryce Young here listed as a 99. I don't think Bryce Young is a 99, even though he did win the Heisman Trophy. I also think that either CJ Stroud is with him in terms of rating or above him, in my opinion. That's just what I think. So I think that you're looking at two guys that are fairly similar. And then you get guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jordan Addison. Josh Downs being up there at 97 is a little surprising, but I don't really have any arguments against that. And then Brock Bowers, Xavier Worthy, and Bijan Robinson up there. And they have the kicker from Michigan, which we'll talk about Michigan a little bit later. But that was a little bit surprising. And then they go into kind of different positions that we'll talk about here. So we talked about Young and Stroud and the quarterbacks. And the most interesting thing, obviously, he talked about in his video how they only did the Power Five. So guys like Clayton Tune and Grayson McCall, they're not going to be on this list. But just looking at the Power Five, Sam Hartman would be the third best quarterback. And honestly, I disagree. I have multiple quarterbacks ahead of Sam Hartman in my rankings for the quarterbacks for the 2022 season. Some of those being Hendon Hooker, KJ Jefferson, Clayton Tune, Grayson McCall, Jake Haener. There's a lot of guys that I have above Sam Hartman. And not to say Sam Hartman isn't a good quarterback, because he is, but I think that you're looking at other guys that are a little bit better than him. I think that Wake Forest is going to probably throw the ball a lot, and their defense is probably going to give up a lot of points, which allows the offense to get more chances to score. But I don't know if you're going to put Sam Hartman up near the top of that. He's a great quarterback, though, so it's really hard to kind of put some of these guys down, because you're looking at guys who can really sling it. I think running back this year is a tough position to kind of judge. You're looking at a lot of guys who can be considered the top running back in college football. He has Bijan Robinson at the top. And I think that there's really, to me, a couple guys that you'd put there at the top. Bijan obviously is one of them. The other two guys that I would consider up there is Travion Henderson and Jahmyr Gibbs. And Jahmyr Gibbs is the one that really surprised me. We'll talk about him more in a little bit. But Bijan Robinson really is that kind of that complete package. There's not a ton that people can really find in terms of what he needs to prove upon. So that's really exciting if you're a Texas fan, but also if you're looking for a running back at the next level, Bijan is definitely your guy. Travion Henderson is lightning in a bottle for sure. I think that he is an underrated part of the Ohio State offense. Also a part of that offense that kind of gets forgotten because the passing attack is so good. And then Jahmyr Gibbs being under at that low at 92 overall, I think is wrong. And maybe it's because you're trying to have a little bit different opinion. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a phenomenal season at Alabama. Now, obviously, he's got plenty of talent around him, which is going to take some of those touches away in terms of getting him the football and being able to show what he can do. But you look at what he did at Georgia Tech, and there's no reason why putting him on Alabama doesn't put him near the top of the list. Sean Tucker's great. Braylon Allen, is good. And Zach Charbonnet is good as well. But I just don't think that Jahmyr Gibbs is worse than Blake Corum and Christopher Rodriguez, especially when Rodriguez is going to be out. But obviously this was done a month ago, so things probably have changed with those ratings if you're going to do them again. Flipping a wide receiver, we talked about Smith and Jigba and Jordan Addison and Josh Downs. We also mentioned Xavier Worthy. I was surprised to see Kayshon Boutte as the fifth best wide receiver. That was kind of interesting to me. But the top five is really kind of hard to argue. Jackson Smith and Jigba is a phenomenal talent. I think that he's going to be an explosive playmaker again for the Buckeyes. People forget that he was the leading receiver last year for Ohio State, and he's going to be fun. Quentin Johnston for TCU is a super underrated player. I don't believe anybody's really high enough on him. I think he needs to be higher on a lot of people's lists, and he could be with some of these top guys up here. And then you look at the rest of the guys they have here. A.T. Perry is going to be good for Wake Forest. Dontavian Wicks and Keaton Thompson at Virginia will be fun with Brendan Armstrong. I don't know if Thompson is worthy of a 93, but he's going to be very fun to watch. Now he's more solidified at the wide receiver role. And then Raheem Jarrett, I don't think he's the best receiver on his team. I think that Dante Demas, if he's healthy, is a phenomenal player, best on their team, in my opinion, but both of them are really a solid duo. Brock Bowers leads the way at tight end. There's not really a ton of arguments you have against that. The only person that you probably argue with is Michael Mayer. But Brock Bowers is shined as a freshman. He was a phenomenal talent. And I think that you're looking at a kid who's only going to thrive more this season. There's a ton of weapons around him. And the tight end group at Georgia itself is really fun to watch. And there's a ton of talent. As you see, Darnell Washington is also listed on here. And then Eric Gilbert is listed later down on the list. But Brock Bowers is phenomenal, and it's going to be a matter of if he's getting more attention from defenses or what's going to happen there. But it's a good group and one that I'm really excited to watch. And you look at the rest of the tight ends. Sam Laporte at Iowa is really good. Benjamin Urasek doesn't get enough love, in my opinion, at Stanford. Stanford, I think, maybe will surprise some people this year, but the combination of Tanner McKee and Benjamin Urasek is going to be really fun. They do. Okay, I take it back. They do have some group of five here. Josh Wiley and Kamari Gamble from Cincinnati and UCF, respectively, are listed on here. So that's pretty fun to see. I really like to see all of the rosters. But again, we're not getting a game this year. So that's just kind of unfortunate. And then if we go to offensive line, you're going to see, we don't really talk about offensive line, so we're not going to spend a ton of time here. But you're looking at DeJuan Jones. I was surprised to see this high. I think a lot of people wouldn't even consider him the best tackle on his team, but he's still going to be solid. Then you flip to the other side, they have left tackle and right tackle. Connor Galvin is someone who was going to be familiar. They do have Paris Johnson here, so on the other left tackles here. But I think that you're looking at a tackle position for Ohio State is going to be solid. Connor Galvin as the top tackle here at left tackle was kind of surprising. A lot of people have Peter Skoronski as the top tackle for many of them. Blake Freeland is a tackle from BYU that I think is flying under the radar. You're going to see him rise up draft boards when it's all said and done. When you flip over to guard, then you're looking at a guy like Caleb Chandler, who has been a beast for Louisville, and Louisville's offensive line is going to be one of the best in college football this year. I think that means good things for Malik Cunningham and the rest of that offense. Another one that I like, Clark Barrington from BYU. That BYU offensive line, like Louisville, it has been good for a while, and they're going to be really exciting to watch. And then at center, Jared Patterson, no surprise, moves back to center after going to tackle for Notre Dame. Surprised he wasn't a little bit higher. Ricky Strongberg from Arkansas. A lot of good guys here at center. It's going to be a talented group. John Michael Schmitz from Minnesota at the bottom there is criminally underrated. So if you're ranking him that low, just redo your rankings. Flipping over to defensive end, everybody knows Myles Murphy. He's been a starter since he was a freshman at Clemson, and I really am excited to see what he can do in probably his final season at Clemson with the Tigers. That defensive line for Clemson is the best unit in college football. I did a video on them and what they do so well and why they're so good. And Myles Murphy is just one of those pieces that's really exciting to watch. Isaiah Foskey at Notre Dame, a little bit down at 91. Interesting. I think that he's a very talented, very versatile player for Notre Dame. And then near the bottom there, O'Shawn Mathis at Nebraska has the potential to be one of the best defensive ends in college football. And then when we flip to the other side, it's kind of tough because I remember in the video game when it's a 3-4 versus a 4-3, you kind of just have people listed as uh, whatever. But I think some of these positions need to get fixed because Dante Stills and Jalen Carter are not defensive ends; they're defensive tackles. So you're not going to see them in defensive tackles here. But Will McDonald's really exciting, and then you're looking at plenty of other players. Another Miles Murphy. But this time that's the North Carolina Miles Murphy. He is also defensive tackle. There's a lot of just, I don't know. Colin Oliver for Oklahoma State is going to be really fun to watch. I think that once there's less crowded room, he'll be really exciting. And then when we flip to defensive tackle, we're going to go towards the inside. You're going to see a group that, again, should include Jalen Carter, should include those other guys, but Jason Ademilola is another piece to that Notre Dame defense, that defensive line, the front seven. That's really exciting. So again, you see Kalijah Cansey's there, Brian Bresee, Tyler Davis. Those guys should be included. The Jalen Carters and whatnot should be included in this list as well. Going to linebacker, the outside linebackers, we don't have to talk about a ton. Drake Thomas is listed as an outside linebacker here. He is one of the many linebackers at North Carolina State. That's really exciting. I'm surprised that he has the same rating as Yasir Abdullah and Nolan Smith from Louisville and Georgia, respectively. That kind of surprised me that he's that high up. Trenton Simpson at 87 is not good. He is a 90-plus player for sure. That's kind of the only complaint I have there. And then going to the opposite side, then of course you have Will Anderson. We talked about him. Peyton Wilson, another North Carolina State linebacker. Nick Herbig from Wisconsin. The list kind of drops off here, which is interesting. So I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about this list as well. Then we flip to middle linebacker. Everybody knows Noah Sewell. That's been kind of obvious. He is one of the best linebackers in college football. Henry Chocho is behind him. Michael Jones is after him. Michael Jones is a super underrated player out of Syracuse. Jack Campbell at Iowa, Bumper Pool from Arkansas, Dax Holyfield. Again, I think that Virginia Tech fans have been telling me that Dax Holyfield isn't as good as people think he is, but he's just a tackling machine. Troy Brown, I was surprised to see this high. The Central Michigan transfer now at Ole Miss is going to be fun to watch. I think he's super athletic, but he's got to add some weight if he's going to be able to handle the SEC competition. Then we go to the backside. We look at the secondary. We start with corners. Everybody knows Eli Ricks, the LSU transfer, who's now at Alabama. He is just, the length on him is super incredible. His ability to bat balls down and to be able to defend pass catchers with relative ease, even if he's out of position, is going to be fun to watch if he can stay healthy a full year. One guy that's super under the radar is Trevius Hodges-Tomlinson out of TCU. He's one of my favorite players, and I think that he's going to do big things for the Horned Frogs this year. And then you look at the guys above him: Riley Moss out of Iowa, Clark Phillips out of Utah, Cam Smith from South Carolina. A lot of good defensive backs, a lot of good cornerbacks there. Flipping to the safety position, we'll start with free safeties. They have free safeties and strong safeties, if you guys remember the game. Antonio Johnson plays everywhere for Texas A&M, can play almost essentially linebacker for them. He's just a good frame, 6'3", 200 pounds, does a little bit of everything for this defense. And that's a defense that's going to need that with most of its front seven gone. Going to need some new guys to step up in front, but that secondary is loaded for them. And Antonio Johnson gives them depth at other positions because he's able to move around the field so much. And then finally at strong safety, Jordan Battle, Jamie Robinson at Florida State is one of my favorites. I think that Akeem Dent, his teammate, should be higher up on this list too. Jalen Catalon, if he stays healthy, is a potential All-American candidate. Trey Dean, I think, is too high here, especially with guys like Akeem Dent there. You look at Isheem Young, I think is also too high. But again, there's so many players that you can talk about here. So again, I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say in terms of who was left out, who deserves to be on this list. It's fun to talk about, though. I wish the game was coming back because it'd be fun to get a group together with you guys, with the viewers, and to be able to, play together and talk about the game more. Obviously, we're 1 year away, so we just have to be patient, but for now, it's fun to at least talk about some rankings, talk about some player ratings, and kind of get a glimpse of what the game could be even though it's not here. Madden obviously gets what they get, and we just have to wait a little bit longer to get the best video game that's ever been created.